Hi everyone, my name is Giovanna Sanchez, and today I will be giving my presentation on improving graduate students' test-taking skills through self-regulated learning, also known as the SRL framework. Introduction. Study skills matter. Graduate students face numerous demands, including employment, family, and financial obligations. Effective study taking skills are associated with improved academic performance, lower stress levels, and increased persistence in graduate programs. So the purpose of this presentation is to examine the SRL framework, self-regulated learning framework, explore its relevance to behavior analysis, and evaluate research supporting its effectiveness, and discuss application for graduate students from diverse ethnic backgrounds. Self-regulated learning framework. Self-regulated learning framework refers to active process through which learners set goals, monitor their progress, and modify their behavior to improve learning. This is something that we often do see in the field of ABA and that we apply directly through our direct intervention plans. We see what works, what may not work, and then that's where we make modifications based off of our data collection. So the assumptions. Learning is an active learning process. Academic behaviors can be measured and modified. Self-management skills contribute to long-term success, and students influence their own academic success. The three clinical phases. What would you do? What would you learn after testing? So there's three clinical phases that I'm going to be discussing throughout this presentation. I'm just going to give you guys a quick brief overview. So the first one is the forethought phase, the second being performance, and the third being self-regulation. The forethought phase, so the components. Goal setting, students establish measurable academic objectives. An example of this would be completing 50 SAFMED trials daily, reviewing lecture notes for 30 minutes a day. That's something that we already have done in previous courses throughout this program, and it's something that I have found to be effective once I found a great routine to implement my SAFMEDs along with reading lectures, reviewing material. So just building that structure did truly help, just because in the beginning I didn't have that structure and I didn't have that set routine. And that's where I was able to learn what worked for me, what didn't, and which way that I learned best. So that kind of goes into what I'm going to be discussing about next. So strategic planning. Students select their effective study methods before beginning their session. For me, I found that going through the SAFMEDs was more so me just memorizing the definitions and not really being receptive of the material that was being given. So for example, made it an extra I made it an extra component for me to review the material, but also implement active SAFMEDs, quizzes, and routine and games that helped me not only retain the material at a slower pace, but also allowed me to slow down, read the definition, well, read the term, and then process the definition, and that helped me gain a deeper understanding of the material. So, for example, retrieval practice, spaced repetition, and practice quizzes. That's kind of what I was just explaining before. Self-efficiency begins, and it is a belief regarding one's ability to succeed academically, influenced by persistence and effort. Researchers suggest that higher self-efficiency predicts greater academic achievement and persistence. Performance phase. So self-monitoring. Students can collect their own data. That's kind of what we have done in previous courses with SAFMEDs. Study hours, quizzes, and number of questions completed. Attention control. Eliminating distractions, scheduled breaks, and using designated study spaces. I personally have found, since this program is all online, I tend to get distracted within my home setting just with other variables such as chores, doing my laundry, family distractions, and just like coming from someone who tends to get distracted easily, I just found that this environment wasn't the best for me to study, complete homework. Therefore, I made it a priority to go out into my community, go to coffee shops, libraries, parks, just to change the environment that I was working in, and just helped me focus and just lock in on what I was doing. Self-instruction. So active questioning, teaching concepts to others, and active questions. I have found for me to vocalizing the questions out loud, stating them out loud, recording myself, being more comfortable recording myself, filming the questions. That way I can go back and see how I did respond, where, and determine where there was lapse. Self-reflection phase. Self-evaluation. To the self-evaluation, students compare performance outcomes against predetermined goals. For example, for SAFMEDS, I have the total number of the total number that I want to, the aim score basically. I want to get 50 by the end of the semester and get them boom, 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 done. I want to reach that aim score, right? So, for example, throughout the weeks, I'm going to be progressively practicing repetition, doing my quizzes, testing myself, tracking my data to see where I'm at and see how far I am to reaching that target score of 50. And based on that data, I'm able to see what works, what hasn't worked. And this far in my program, I now have a good sense of what works for me, what doesn't work for me, and I'm able to apply that routine fast in a more effective manner than at the beginning of this program. So, for example, questions that I can ask myself. Did I meet my goals? What are barriers that are impacting my progress? What has shown to work? When asking myself these questions, I have realized that my environment is a big factor. And if I'm coming for myself, I am someone that does get distracted easily. And because of that, I go outside of my house into the community to complete my homework, my task, and just study. And I positively reinforce that with a coffee. It sounds silly, but it works. I don't get coffee throughout the week, and it's something that keeps me motivated. So I just get myself a coffee and I just begin to do my coursework, and that has shown to help me focus and remain locked in, just because I'm able to see other people also working on whether it's schoolwork, work, collaborating with peers, that environment that we really don't get to see because we are online. So some evidence to define that or to support that would be defined by Zimmerman as comparing performance outcomes against predetermined goals, includes identifying barriers and success. So these are just some key questions. Again, did I meet my goals? What are some barriers that are impacting progress, and what has shown to work? Some maladaptive attribution could be negative internal beliefs that limit potential. For example, I am not smart. I am not capable. And just having those self-doubts, because truly, if you are constantly talking down on yourself, and if you don't believe in yourself, you're going to start believing that. And for me, I had this strict rule with myself, and I've worked to get to this place where I don't talk bad about myself at all, whether it be like I'm not smart, I'm not capable. Um, I can say like, oh, I'm having a hard time with this, but I don't belittle myself, because once you do get in that negative mindset, I believe that that truly does affect your capability, and that being your capability and you being against yourself, you're going to start to believe that. And then that also unravels your potential and what you could be. So self-reinforcement, like I mentioned, I get myself a coffee, and that seems to help me remain focused, locked in, and get my work done. So self-reinforcement acts as the preferred items that bring joy and comfort to the individual. Relevance to applied behavior analysis. Why SRL and ABA emphasize? So they're both observable behavior. We're able to track it, we're able to set goals and make continuous modifications and evaluations. So I'm able to get, in the beginning of this course or my previous courses, I'm able to get a baseline data of my SAFMEDs to see where I'm at. So for example, if the AIM score is 50 and I have a baseline score of 5, I'm able to see, okay, what do I need to do progressively throughout these next couple weeks to reach that aim of 50. And throughout the weeks, I can just make modifications where needed. For example, let's say I realize that I'm getting the 5 of the same questions wrong. What can I do to get these five questions right? I will actively, instead of reviewing the whole deck over and over again, after 3 consecutive sessions, I will just actively shorten my deck to those 5 questions and just boom, 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 boom. I will just keep repeating them until I start to be a little bit more receptive of them. I will implement those questions in games that Quizlet offers that helps me gain a deeper understanding of the concept and materials. And then that's what the modifications look like. So just more active recall, more repetition, and finding different ways that work for me. Relevance, this is to applied behavior analysis. So this is just comparing the two. So goal setting and SRL strategy, we do set goals, and ABA principles, we have behavioral objectives, self-monitoring and self-management, reflection and database decision-making, self-reinforcement and positive reinforcement. A lot of between the two, these concepts do align and intertwine as one. And according to Cooper, self-management interventions are highly effective in promoting independent behavior across settings. And that's something that we often do see in this field day to day based on client progress, client growth, and yeah, the case study. So I will be referring to Kiara, the 19-year-old student. They are motivated, empathetic, and intelligent. They balance full-time jobs and friendship. But recently, they have struggled with attention issues and anxiety. It has recently been affecting their performance and attendance, and it has resulted in a failed midterm and various missing assignments. Baseline data, they study for 2 to 3 hours weekly, averaging 72% on quizzes. Kiara, applying SRL to Kiara. The forethought, increase goal settings to 8 hours per week. The plan is to study 3 to 5 times a week and implement SAFMED sessions. Performance, study duration, completion of assignments, and accuracy on quizzes. Reflection, weekly review, revise study plans and make modifications where it is needed. Identify barriers and analyze quiz scores. After about 8 weeks, we expect for her anxiety to be reduced, quizzes to be average increases to 95%, and the study of hours also increased. Cultural responsiveness. Students differ in language proficiency, family expectations, language proficiency, and overall morals, ethnic backgrounds, values. And because of all these factors, they can still SRL can also still be applied based on their individual needs. So SRL allows for individualized adaptation based on cultural values and environmental demands. Bailu emphasizes culturally responsive practices that incorporate perspectives and contextual variables when designing interventions. Some literature review. Graduate students who actively monitor their learning generally perform better than students who rely solely on passive study methods. Research demonstrates that SRL interventions reduce procrastination, improve academic achievement, and enhance time management skills, as well as an increase in self-efficiency. AI findings versus scholarly literature. AI synthesizes broad patterns but may overlook contextual values and methodological limitations identified in peer-reviewed studies. I have found that the peer-reviewed studies go into deeper evaluate the topics with all the information and go dive deeper into the concept, opposed to AI just summarizes it and it doesn't give you the bigger picture opposed to you reading it. I will say AI allows for you to outline and summarize the concepts and gives you an understanding of the material, but I think it doesn't compare to actually reading literature through and through and then maybe asking like, hey, I need a deeper understanding on this. Can you help me with this? But that's where the scholarly findings, motivation interacts with strategy effectiveness, intervention fidelity impacts results of cultural variables effects. Implementation, environmental factors also influence the outcomes. Whereas AI findings, time management is important, goal setting improves outcomes, and study consistency is also important. So they overlap in the sense where it's the same material, but I have found for the peer-reviewed resources to be a more thorough explanation of the concepts. So strengths of SRL. Evidence-based. So there's strong empirical support across educational settings, consistent with ABA, such as self-management, behavioral skills training, and data collection. It's adaptable, so it can be individualized amongst cultural groups, graduate studies, different learning environments, and just people from different ethnic and cultural backgrounds. It's sustainable. It promotes lifelong learning skills. Some limitations of SRL can be combined with potential challenges, such as it requires learners' motivation. So learners have to be motivated, wanting to learn. And this kind of just goes back to what I was talking about before. If the learner is having self-doubt and not feeling confident with themselves and within their competence, and that truly does affect their own internal reflection of self, which combined with all that self-doubt and academic stress, they're just not going to believe that they're capable, when in reality, everyone is capable. I believe that everyone is truly capable of success when given the proper help, guidance, and support. Some students may require additional coaching, so they might need extra support resources that can help them foster the capability to unleash their true potential. Some internal stressors can reduce effectiveness. Students may initially struggle with self-monitoring. That is me. I study with self-monitoring for sure. It's something that I have gotten better where I have gotten better with time throughout my graduate studies, and it But with that, I had to make it a priority and a goal for myself to, for example, like tracking my fieldwork hours, even like the staff med. So I made it a priority to at least update that once or twice a week. Some graduate student barriers, some might have other family obligations, mental fatigue, financial stressors. Um, they might be full-time employed, so they might not have the full, um, might not have the availability to dedicate so much time to their studies. So conclusion, graduate students can improve academic performance by systematically applying self-management, goal setting, self-monitoring, and self-evaluation. Some key findings were self-regulated learning provides a comprehensive framework for improving study and test-taking skills. Cultural responsiveness and individualized implementation improve outcome. Research supports its effectiveness across diverse graduate students. And here are my references. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.